On the consent agenda tonight, we have the check wire disbursement summary, the bank reconciliation statements for August and September, the board meeting minutes for September 9th, September 23rd, September 30th, resignations, terminations, and non-renewals as follows, and the Youth Appreciation Week proclamation. I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
By Lee.
Second.
Second by Dan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. And the resolution for acceptance of gifts tonight, we have gifts as follows. I have a motion to accept the gifts. By Stacy, second. By Chad. This is a roll call vote. Chad? Aye. Rich?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Stacy? Aye. Dan?
Aye.
That carries 6-0. Tonight for Laker Pride, we have the Prairie Lake Rotary. They will please come forward.
Here they come. Let's come over here so the camera can pick you up over here if we move to the center. Tonight, representing our Prairie Lake Rotary is our president of our Prairie Lake Rotary, Paul Perez, and Doug Gesme, who has been co-chair with Paul of the Prairie Lake Music Fest this past year, and the year before that. Both of you were involved very heavily, as I recall. And for these past 2 years, the Prairie Lake Rotary has chosen the school district to be one of the nonprofit partners, and specifically our LABC, our Lake Athletic Booster Club, as well as our Patron of the Arts, our PAA organizations. And this year, we donated over 535 hours that were recorded properly. Some of our people did sign up under other categories, so we're not really sure how many, but we know it was at least 535 hours, which to me is just a phenomenal number of volunteer hours given to our Rotary for this fabulous music event right here in our community. But in addition to that, our LABC students and our PAA students sold tickets as well as raffle tickets for the event. And for that, we received for our LABC a little over $14,000, and for our PAA, 9,000 something. So it was a very profitable event for our organization, but also for the Rotary. So we wanted to thank you for your including us as part of this wonderful event. So thank you. And does somebody have something they want to say?
I'll give it a swirl here. I want to thank everyone involved with the school district, the LABC, the Patron of the Arts and Activities. Great effort. We cannot put this event on without our community partnership with our nonprofit partners. With so many volunteers, it makes a big difference. The only way we're going to succeed is if everyone pulls together. And every year we've done that, and we're very proud to be partnering with you folks again, hopefully this year, and make it even better. There are some folks within the school district themselves that have really done a tremendous job and help us all year as well, and Christy Mussman is certainly one of those, Ashley Franks. And on top of you, for you as well, Sue Ann, Tim Bell, and Jim, I know he can get mad at me for bringing him out, but he does a great job with the transportation, so it really involves a lot of people.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, and on behalf of the Prairie Lake Rotary Club, it's a special partnership in our heart, and we love working with the school district, and we have a long-standing relationship, and actually the club turns 35 years old tomorrow, and in that time we've supported the DARE program for over 20 years, and now that's been moved over to Project Alert the last couple years. Junior achievement as far as bringing teachers, to the classrooms and teaching the curriculum. We've had Rotarians do that, and the last 3 years, the STRIVE program at Bridges, we've had mentors there. So we do appreciate it, and it's great to partner with the school district. So thank you.
Thank you. And we just have a small certificate thanking you both for your support of our school district and support of everything that we do. Thank you.
We have one more Laker Pride tonight. It's the Green Schools Initiative that was awarded to us in Washington, D.C. If those folks will come forward. And is Paul still here? Oh, right. Come on up, Paul. I'm sure you'll have a couple words to say.
See me here, can't you?
You can probably see you there if you want to there, or come on up. I'll help you out.
I'm fine.
One more job.
Got it.
Okay.
Thomas.
Come on over to this side. That way. Half and half. How's that?
Tom Westerhouse, would you like to come up, please? Begging everyone to come up that has something to do with this wonderful day. At 6:15 this evening, we had a reception recognizing the fact that our school, one of our schools, Jeffers Pond, was named a green school by the United States Department of Education and Environment, and our district was given a sustainability award for the work that we're doing in environmental education, not just today, but for the past decade, and being recognized in such a way that we were able to take a team to Washington, D.C. in May to receive this award. And we have a few very special people standing here. In addition to our team that went, we have Tom Westerhouse, my predecessor, who was very instrumental, along with Mr. Paul Oberg right here, from the lead on the Jeffers Foundation. They had a dream, and it has become a reality for us, and we are very, very proud. And as we said in our earlier event, we have been standing on the shoulders of many giants over the course of the last 10 years, each year getting just a little bit better, a little bit more refined, a little bit more widespread. And we couldn't do it without the work of everyone together. And that's Jim's department, his custodial leads in each of the buildings that work so hard, his outside crew, in addition to everyone in our buildings from our secretaries on up, and making sure that we really are working together to make our students have the learning lessons of life to be real educational and environmental stewards. So we've been able to do that together, and thank you to the school board for allowing us to continue to have that strong focus on environmental education throughout these years. So we're very proud of each of you, and I think it was Leanne right here was going to just give a couple of sentences about the experience in Washington.
Basically, what I can say is when I got to be one of the people to represent our district in Washington, D.C., I was very proud. I was very proud to be from Prior Lake Savage. I look at the core of what we've changed and accomplished in these years. We've changed how our students learn, what they value. It's affected staff and what we value and what we find important, and it goes from every junior naturalist to every student who brings a recyclable lunch container to the staff you see using water bottles and really hitting hard and hitting home those environmental education lessons. And when we got to Washington, D.C., and we were standing on the top of the USDA building and the Secretary of Education was giving us the award, it really hit home what a change we've made in this district and how proud I am of what we've accomplished. And I felt very much part of a team, and it was a big group effort that's accomplished this. I'm Leanne Weichel. I'm from Jeffers Pond.
Sarah Aker, Red Hill Ridge.
Kay Dickey, 5th grade, Jeffers Pond.
Lindsay Comstock, 5th grade, Jeffers Pond. Carrie Doby, Community Education.
Caroline Warner, Principal at Jeffers Pond.
I think I was introduced.
Tom Westerhouse.
Paul, what do you have to say tonight?
Can I have a half hour?
3 minutes.
As you know, I was the attorney for a man by the name of Bob Jeffers. And when he left his estate to me for charitable purposes, no way would he have any notion that we'd be where we are. From the the standpoint of this district and from the standpoint of Jeffers Foundation, because we're hopefully teaching teachers to teach children in a different way, and I hope in a much more positive way from the standpoint of the results. Thank you.
I meant to say this in the reception and got sidetracked. When I came to this district in 2002, it was so great to arrive at Five Hawks Elementary and see the beautiful nature center that was already there. And school boards get beaten up a lot for different things that they do over the course of school years. And that happened, Five Hawks, because school boards from early on in this district took seriously nature, environment, and children, and built that, supported that, and continued that support right up through now. And I see a couple of board members that were probably even on the board then when I was hired, and maybe were part of the Five Hawks legacy. So I think that's really an important piece that it started a long time ago.
So we're just here tonight to recognize all of our participants, both the ones that went with us and the ones that had to stay behind, as well as all of those teachers, administrators, custodians, and food service workers, every single person that's made a difference in this district that has really impacted students. So thank you and congratulations to each one of you. And thank you for going with us.
We'll move on to the open forum tonight. We have 15 minutes set aside for any community member who would like to address the board on subjects not on the forum tonight. Do we have any? Seeing none, we'll move on to personnel.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Groover. First of all, I would like to recommend the following candidates for employment and in seeking board approval.
I have a motion to accept the candidates for employment. Chad. Second by Dan. All those in favor?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I noticed a lot of the hire dates or start dates, I'm not sure what the difference is, are August and September dates. And there's even a few that are that started in September and are going to be done shortly. And as you know, I really would prefer to see those a lot sooner. I know our board meetings are once a month, but we have had some special meetings. So I guess I'd like to see that be a little bit more timely in the future. I think we've had that discussion before. So I'm not sure why that happened. I know that some were hired probably last minute. It's just a little, like some of them in August, and that was a little concerning for me.
Okay. Just real briefly on that, we do try hard to make sure that that's not happening. Sometimes it's most difficult right at the start of the school year. I do think that in most of the cases where that has happened, the person's actually started now, that has happened due to a leave rather than the intentional hiring process that we set out with. And in addition to that, we are working to define that. I think we would find very few, I don't know if there's any employee not associated with leave of absence who has already started their position, may have been hired, but started their position prior to June. So take that seriously, and we'll take a look at that again.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Do I have a motion to accept the candidates for employment? That's right. I did. I had Chad. I had a motion in a second by Dan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0. Leaves of absences.
And next, I present the following leaves of absence and am seeking board approval.
A motion to accept the leave of absences as listed in your board pack. By by Stacy, second. By Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
And next, I'm presenting a request for additional staffing for licensed staff during the school year. I will just note that there is a typo in the intro paragraph. It does talk about the effect that it will have on the middle school, and that's not in question here. What we're looking at is 2 special education positions, a .8 addition at Edgewood and a .5 addition at Five Hawks. The need for these positions have come up as we've gotten into this school year, and just seeing that, frankly, the needs for the students and what's shown up on their IEPs has dictated additional staffing at these 2 sites. So with that, I make the following recommendation.
Do I have a motion to accept the additional staffing for the 2013-2014 licensure staff?
So moved.
By Rich. Second by Stacy. Any questions anyone has about this addition? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
And next up, I'm presenting a request for additional staffing for our non-certified positions, our educational support staff. And first off is 2 robotics advisors. This is a program, the VEX program in robotics, that has been around for a number of years now. However, this is the first time that we'll be offering that through the school district. And as we've been looking at how we're going to do that, in order to ensure that there's a safe environment and an appropriate environment for our students, we did realize that we would need to add 2 advisors for that program. So you can see that reflected there. And the cost for those positions will come out of the student fee, participation fees. In addition, there's an assistant baseball coach here. That position will be funded by the Booster Club, both a head and assistant alpine skiing coach. This is a sport, alpine skiing, that has existed in the district at the club level for a number of years. But over time, that sport has really gained in popularity and participation. In addition, it's now a fully recognized sport by the Minnesota State High School League. And we have a brother-sister program, the Nordic Ski program, that currently exists, and they have very similar participation rates that we wanted to honor the work being done there, and again, make sure that we're really promoting and creating the best experience for students there by adding the appropriate coaching levels. And then a request for media support at Five Hawks and Westwood. Due to increased enrollment at Five Hawks and Westwood, there's simply more sections of media that's being taught there. And at the model that we have set up at our elementary level is to have a media paraprofessional in those classrooms to assist. And those additional sections dictate the 238 hours respectively at each site that are presented here. So with that, I make my recommendation.
Do I have a motion to accept the support staff staffing request? So moved. By Dan. By Lee. Anyone have any questions?
I do. The assistant baseball coach, that's an additional position from what we've had.
It is.
Is there any issue with Title, what is it, 9 for softball or anything with the girls?
Eric said that as he had looked at that he felt comfortable that we were providing the same level of service.
Okay, great.
Further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
And lastly, under employment, I'm presenting a job description and just to talk about the change. The only material change to this job description was simply the title. This is a position that we've posted a couple of times, and we'll get a little free advertising right now, just in case anyone's watching us this evening. This position was a network specialist. We have had a significant degree of difficulty in filling this position
to accept the approval of the job description title change.
So moved.
By Lee.
Second.
By Chad. Any questions on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Tonight we have no old business. Move on to new business. The Minnesota State High School League grant for free and reduced lunch. Oh, Beth can do it? Okay.
I'm here in my new role. Welcome. Good evening. Basically, you have the information in front of you for the proposal, but we are requesting from the Activities Office your approval to submit this to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation. What we did was comprise all the numbers from the 2012-13 school year in terms of student participation in our athletics and fine arts program, and we're basically asking for some of that funding back from them in support of our programs. So we need your signature.
Okay. I'll read the resolution as it's written. Whereas the Prior Lake Savage Area School District ISD 719 wishes to request a fund grant from the Minnesota State High School League Foundation, and whereas the grant money shall be used to support the Minnesota State High School League's Engage More Students initiative and the Prior Lake Savage Area School Board's education support of this initiative. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Prior Lake Savage Area School District ISD 719 hereby supports Engaging More Students initiative and the students' request for funding from the Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Do you have a motion to accept this resolution? By Stacy, second.
Second.
By Dan. All those in favor? Oh, it is a roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Lee. Aye. Dan.
Aye.
That carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Deferred maintenance report.
Good evening, Chair Sorensen, School Board, Dr. Gruber. Before you is a list of approved projects from last spring for the 13-14 deferred maintenance. If you remember, we decided not to use capital dollars to help fund the Group A projects, and the scale down projects are the ones we use deferred dollars for. First project was a garage at Five Hawks. That is currently installed or built. Local builder, it's been a really nice ad for Five Hawks. They really needed the extra storage space. At the high school, we removed carpet and polished concrete with a nice logo. We've had a lot of comments on that floor. That looks great, and I think it was. I think that was a great project. Replaced the mail van, by all accounts, just in time. It was in really tough shape, so that was great. We're in the process of getting some grounds vehicles, and we made some hard surface repairs at Prior Lake High School, Twin Oaks, Hidden Oaks, and Jeffers Pond. All projects were either at or below budget.
Thank you. Any questions for Jim about any of the projects?
Thank you.
I'd like to commend you on the logo at the high school. I think it brings in all the entities of our district wrapped around our logo. So
That was a collaborative.
From Christy and everyone.
Thank you.
I know Dave, his former art teacher skills came out on that, and it looks really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Prior Lake High School Classroom Edition bid package approval.
What we have is the second phase of the approvals for the high school edition. As you recall, we had a special board meeting so we could get contractors going, submittals processed, and get our permits moving along. We do currently have a grading permit from the City of Savage, but we are still waiting for our building permit, which we're hoping will be any day now. So before you have a recommendation to approve of the last $2,036,139 of the contracts listed. Prefer I can go through them, or you have them in front of you. It's up to the board how you want it done.
I think we're happy with what we have in front of us. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the, I'm going to read this right, let's reject. The high school addition bid package.
So made.
By Chad, second.
Second.
By Dan. Questions? Okay. Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you. And then we have the rejection of the bid, authority to repost bid.
That's correct. We did have two bids, the landscape bid and the roofing bid, that we'd like to recommend to reject. And we'd also like to go out for the roofing bid concurrently at this time. The landscape bid, we didn't have that great a coverage, and we'd like to postpone that and go out possibly back in January-ish timeframe at a later time.
Only one bidder for landscaping.
Right, one bidder for landscaping. And there was some irregularities in the bidding of the roofing. We did have fairly decent coverage, but when you throw out the irregularities, we only had a couple bidders that actually qualified to bid. We'd like to break up that scope and get more participants to bid that.
Okay. I have a motion to reject the bid as follows. Ms. Stacy, second by Lee. Anyone have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Thanks.
Oh, wait, then we're going to post the ad. Good evening again. Looking for approval to post for advertisements for the high school roof.
Okay, do I have a motion to authorize the bid for the high school roof?
Sure.
By Lee. Second?
Second.
By Dan. Any questions about that?
Did you, from my recall from the facility, it'll be two unique bids?
Correct. It'll be sheet metal will be separate than the roof.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Just the scope of these two were such different that we did not have qualified people to bid both projects. We have ones who would like to bid half of the project or one project and the other. So
Right. The roofers are not really sheet metal. They would general that project, and we think we'll get better pricing with roofers doing roofing and sheet metal staff doing sheet metal.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Jim, did you want the approval for the sheet metal bid also?
It's on the same document.
It's on the same document, okay.
All right. Good evening again. Here to talk about QComp, and on page 91 of your packet, you can see the QComp plan as an overview as presented by, which is the approval from the Department of Education. And just a quick recap of the process that we've undergone. In 2012, in the fall of 2012, the school board set aside the funding so that we could adopt a QComp plan, create a QComp plan, and that it could come to fruition in 2013-14. And then in the spring, the school board voted for us to continue to pursue that and put that QComp plan into place. And now at this point, we have created the plan. Lots of work has gone into that in a true collaboration with the PLSEA, especially the PLSEA leadership team. It's been a phenomenal partner to work with through that process. And a tremendous amount of work has also gone into this by Melissa Knettel, our QComp coordinator, and also cheerleaders amongst the PLSEA group in our peer coaches who have signed on for this year to be in those mentor roles and to help us facilitate and roll out the QComp program. And at the end of last week, the PLSEA voted, and they did vote in favor of QComp to adopt the QComp plan in our district. And now at this point, we're bringing before the board the final vote on the QComp plan to bring that to fruition. So with that, we make the recommendation.
So a motion to accept the QComp final approval.
So moved.
By Rich, second by Stacy. Questions? Ben.
I've talked with Dr. Gruber last spring, with Jeff. We had a workshop built around this whole thing earlier in the spring. And at that time, I was able to voice some of my concern about the QComp plan and what the state of Minnesota is expecting from us. And my concerns really haven't been alleviated over the summer. And I'm not going to elaborate here, but you've all heard my concerns. So at this point, I will be unable to support the QComp going forward.
Any other comments? Questions?
Can we know what percentage the teachers voted to approve this by?
That's something that Deb would be willing.
And any input on why the other percentages weren't for it? Are they looking for more competitive, or?
I don't want to speak for anybody. I would assume that it's a myriad of reasons why that may have been the case. Perhaps just not being up to speed, frankly, even with all the communication plans. Just concerns, time constraints. I think there's a number of reasons. There wasn't any kind of an overriding concern that came to us, and I don't think that came to Deb or anyone else in the PLSEA either, where we thought, boy, we really need to take a look at this, step back from this or anything else. And, when you can get 83% of a group of 450 to agree on anything, it's a small miracle. So I was tremendously pleased by those results and not troubled by that percentage.
Okay, any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carries 4-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. Will we get a report, I think we talked about this before, I just need to be reminded, about how QComp's going from both sides, so to speak, administration and teachers? Maybe mid-year, or I'm not sure what's practical here.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
we're already in process, but.
Yeah. Yep, there's an oversight committee that will help to develop a more comprehensive report at the end of the year. But we can also make sure that we're sharing that, whether it seems to be more appropriate in an open session or in one of our study sessions. But absolutely, we'll bring it back for a mid-year, and then we'll have a more comprehensive review at the end of the year as well.
Actually, one more quick question. Even though it was approved tonight, if it's not showing results, we can still end this next year, correct?
It's always a true partnership, and if we don't think that we're recognizing value from our participation in QComp, that's something that we can always step back from on an annual basis. And the same goes for our teachers. If they're not finding that this is a valuable professional development tool that's making a meaningful difference in the classroom, our teachers can also opt out of that. And so, yes, we're not locking into anything for the long haul, but saying that we're committed to doing this for this year.
And it can be changed. For instance, the 65% based on observation evaluation could be.
Components of the plan can absolutely be changed. It needs a joint agreement that we want to head in a different direction, but absolutely it can be changed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are we going to be mandated to have some type of evaluation?
Yes, we did take a more progressive step than a lot of districts who have adopted a QComp plan, in that we tried very hard to align our QComp plan to help us and to facilitate our transition to the state's teacher evaluation plan. that is going to need to be in effect next year. And so it is going to be a huge boon as we explore how we're going to handle the increased workload that's going to come along with that. Absolutely. It will. Yes. Yeah.
Basically having the state help us fund that portion.
And the teacher evaluation plan is not a choice or an option.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the title. NC, I know it's no job left behind in the ESEA fund allocation meeting.
Good evening, Chair Sorensen, members of the board, Dr. Groover. I'm Amy Kettinen, the district curriculum coordinator. Nice to see you tonight. Annually, this budget comes before you for review. Tonight, we are seeking board approval to accept title funds as indicated in the board packet.
Do I have a motion to accept the title funds as indicated? Stacy?
Second.
Wiley. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again.
Good evening. All right. Curriculum Instruction Assessment Annual Report. Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, I have several items in the board packet here. The annual report on curriculum instruction and student achievement is a report that comes to the board each year for review. It provides an overview. We use this as a key communication tool with the public regarding how the district is doing on assessment, as well as use it as an opportunity to celebrate and articulate some of the things that are going on in the district. So this always is brought before the board for review, and just seeking board approval tonight on it.
Do I have a motion to accept the designations and ratings as all of the board pack? Actually, there's no action required on that one.
Pardon?
There's no action required on that one, Jeff.
No, the annual report, I'm sorry, I went out of order. The annual report seeking board approval, we can go back to the MMR and FR ratings here in just a bit.
Do I have a motion to accept the annual report?
I'll make a motion for the annual report.
I will second that motion.
By Rich. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0.
Thank you. All right. In your board packet is a memo on the multiple measurements rating and the focus rating scores from the Department of Education. Last month I was here giving a presentation with Karen Kennedy on an overview of proficiency. This is that next level of STEF scores from the state of Minnesota. This is a memo for you tonight. What we're trying to do is provide you the information leading up to our December board retreat, where we're going to be looking over data. But the MMR and FR is essentially the second year that, under the state's accountability purposes, of how we are looking at how they look at how schools are doing. It indicates this year's scores, and it also indicates a historical reference. You'll notice that the historical reference goes back beyond 2 years. Reason for that is they were gathering this data to establish a baseline for each of the schools. So that's why you see 4 years there. I do want to point out a couple of things here too, that this is in addition to looking at student growth, looking at cutting the achievement gap and proficiency based on how schools score on the MMR and FR scores. They can be eligible for either being distinguished as a reward school or celebration status eligible. We do have 2 reward schools this year, Glendale and Red Tail Ridge. This is Red Tail Ridge's second year as a reward school, which puts them in a pretty high class. There are very few schools that receive that distinction 2 years in a row. Please keep in mind that these distinctions are for schools that only receive title dollars. And last year, Glendale was the first year they had received title after several years of not receiving title. Five Hawks and Grainwood are eligible for celebration status, and that's the same as last year as well. They were both eligible, and they both received the distinction of being a celebration school. There is a process that they do have to go through. I do want to point out as well, likewise with Glendale, not receiving title dollars prior to last year. Westwood Elementary had been receiving title and qualified as a reward school last year. Because they did not receive title, they're not eligible for that distinction moving forward since they are not a title receiving school. But their scores were just as high and performed very well. And that same can be said for all of our schools in our district when we look at these ratings. Comparatively speaking, the scores are very much in line with either in celebration school status or reward school status, aside from the title, receiving the title dollars. So this is just another report for you this evening, and kind of building up to that data retreat for the board coming at the beginning of December.
Anyone have any questions about it? Just a typo on page 107, the Five Hawks. I'm assuming that percentage is incorrect that we have in our board packet. It had 44 points out of a possible 75. And you have it as a percentage of about 25%.
It's a little low.
With my old Richfield High School math, that comes in right. So
thank you for catching that. My apologies to Five Hawks.
Well, it carries over to the next one also.
yeah.
Only on the first two.
Yep. Now, will this information be up on the district website then?
Yes, we will be distributing this information so that people do, particularly with our reward schools, but also the accurate test scores.
You'll make that change when it goes up.
Correct.
Thank you.
For sure.
We'll move on to the District Curriculum Advisory Committee roster.
Yes, in your board packet is the roster for the District Curriculum Advisory Committee, as well as meeting dates and topics. This is a committee that comes before the board each year for review and approval. We have several teachers on there from elementary, middle school, and high school, particularly in the Assessment, Grading, and Reporting Committee, as well as the Social Studies Committee. Community members, we do have board members on this, as well as administrators. And so, just as a brief overview, this is the Curriculum Advisory Committee. Things that are happening from a programmatic level to curriculum level, before they come to the board, most of those topics go before the Curriculum Advisory for feedback and review. And so, this is a group where we're seeking board approval of this roster.
We have a motion to accept the District Curriculum Advisory Committee roster. By Stacy. Second by Chad. Questions? Tim?
Jeff, you have me on as one of the board members. I thought it was Chad. If you get on the bottom of the agenda,
Okay.
the curriculum on the agenda where we have for the reports, Chad's name is listed in the curriculum. And I think it was originally going to be me, and then we switched it right after we got elected. So there might be some confusion there.
Okay. I will take either of you, but not both of you, because then we'll have a quorum. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll amend the roster to add Chad, strike Dan. And with that, I had a motion, a second issue with those. Further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 6-0. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Enrollment report.
Good evening. I'm just here to have a little discussion about our enrollment and talk about the process of our final budget, which will be in December. Okay. Just to talk a little bit about enrollment. When we budgeted last spring, we talked about our enrollment. We had our demographic study. We budgeted our enrollment at 7,269. Our October 1 enrollment, which is what we report to the Department of Ed, is 7,443, which is considerably higher than our budgeted amount. However, as we go through and look at really what do our numbers mean, of course there's underlying implications. We do have 64 full-time PSEO students that attend post-secondary enrollment options, And so we receive only 12% of funding for those students. So we subtract out those students from our enrollment because we're not really receiving any revenue or very little revenue for those students. And then we also have 77 part-time PSEO students. So some of them attend for one class at a PSEO, but some attend for maybe 5 and just come back here for band or choir. So we have some varying amounts of time for those students. So we just divide them in half, and we just consider half of them won't be here. We won't receive funding for about half of those students. We subtract 36 out. And then historically, we lose about 70 students from October 1 through the end of the school year. They may be moving, you know, with 7,400 students, it's a small percentage of students really that are moving or attending a different school for various reasons. And so we do lose historically about 70 students. So we end up budget-wise right about the 72, 73, which is 4 students higher than our budgeted amount. So looking forward, when we're looking at our final budget and then looking at enrollment for our final budget, which is what we base our budget on, I really feel comfortable with what we began the year with at that 7269. We may end up a little bit higher than that, but we like to be a little conservative. Maybe I should say I like to be a little conservative, but I think we're well within our range here. If we end up with 5 or 7 students higher, that's a very comfortable place for the district to be in. Any questions about the enrollment? Okay, then I'll move on to my next subject. Can I do that? Sure. I just want to go through a little bit and talk about what have we done, what has the board approved so far, looking forward to the final budget in December. And so some of the approved expenditures that we have so far are our one-to-one technology, we have some staffing, a .3 network systems tech, and a tech integration specialist. So we're looking about $75,000 there. And our staff iPads, which we purchased those, the district bought those, and then we're leasing the student iPads. So we have a total technology increase over our preliminary budget of about $660,000. Also at the beginning of the year, with all the additional students that we had some transportation needs, so we did add 3 routes at the beginning of the school year. And we also added some additional staffing at the various schools, elementary, middle, and high school. So for about $237,000. So we had a total of about $387,000 of additional expenditures there. So our total expenditure increase in those 2 areas was just a little over $1 million. It seems a little odd that we would do such a thing, but with our technology, that really did raise those expenditures just a little bit more than what we would normally have. And I did want to talk about where that money is coming from. If you look at, I'm going to actually switch this. If you look at, I highlighted in our budget where these areas are coming from and how it'll affect this. We have our unassigned operating, about $225,000 will come out of the unassigned, just our general fund unassigned budget. Other than that, we do have very specific areas that we're taking the dollars from. If you look at the assigned for technology, as you know, in the past, we did have some money set aside for cash flow, and there's been a lot of discussion at board workshops that we move that money out now that the state has restored our funding back to 90-10. And so $1 million of that has been discussed of going into technology. And remember, this hasn't been approved by the board. This is just showing you some of the possibilities, and this is up for further discussion. But we're moving $1 million into technology to cover some of these costs for our one-to-one initiative. And then we also moved $1 million into class size reduction, knowing that we had a high school edition coming in the following years. So with that move, that zeroes out that cash flow. And then we're showing $318,000 utilized out of the technology budget for the student leasing of the iPads. And then we also have class size reduction. We have about $237,000 there for staffing. And then innovative programming, that $264 is the cost of the staff iPads. So you can see the different areas that money, the board did set aside funding for this, and those are the areas that it's coming out of. Any questions about this? And like I said, this is discussion only. It's just information as we move forward, and it certainly isn't set in stone. So if something needs to be changed, or the board feels that they want to see something showing differently with the budget, we certainly can discuss that.
Any questions for Julie?
All right, well, thank you.
Move on to the Fab Lab presentation.
Good evening. As you can see by the letter that I sent out to you last week, kind of keeping you updated here, we are going to be exploring offering a Fab Lab for next year. The full process will come through the Curriculum Review Committee. We'll write it up as a full course, and the next month we'll bring it to the Curriculum Review Committee because it is a course like anything else. What makes this a little unique is the nature of we have to build a program. It's not just a classroom. You can see by the numbers I've put down there, Mr. Marish and I went through the IDT department to see what equipment we have. I've been over to Montemita 3 times to look at theirs. The last time it was John Marish, myself, Joe Bollinger, and Jennifer Reinhardt. We had an hour just with the coordinator who runs it, just him and the 4 of us, and we got to see the equipment, look at the equipment, talk. So then what I did is I went to the MIT site and downloaded the equipment that is needed for a Fab Lab. Now they come out to $97,000 without the computers and so on. So then John and I went through what we have, what we don't have, and came up with this list as you see. The really good news is our room situation is great. We don't have to do any major remodeling. We'd bring in some new tables and some new cabinets. But it's not like tearing down walls, lowering ceilings, changing ventilation. None of that has to be done. It is simply a furniture item. So we have the rooms, we have the space. You can see the list of the equipment that I will be going out and soliciting donations for. We'll be talking to local businesses, people that are in this industry. Do you want to sponsor a laser printer? Do you want to sponsor? We already have a shop bot. We already have a laser engraver. So we have some stuff. And you can see I have 2 prices. One without $84,832. That's ballpark guessing, our best guess, without an upgrade to the computer lab. And then the computer lab is listed down below. Again, some of you have been over to Montemita. I think that what we're going to offer in this class to make it unique is we're going to grab the business department, and Jennifer Reinhardt went with me, and either herself or one of her colleagues will go through the Fab Lab training with John Marish. They both have asked to go through it this summer. Joe Bollinger, the science teacher, is kind of our physics rep that's going to be guiding us through this part. But we want a business and marketing component to this too. We want to build anything, I think, as the class, and where you can build some phenomenal projects using fabrication laboratory, but we also want that business end in, exploring the market, exploring the product, what's it look like on the front end before we build it, and how do we market it on the back end, because that I think puts a complete process in place and merges 2 departments. We'll be following the standards as listed under the engineering standards under the Minnesota State Science Curriculum, and that's kind of the down and dirty, and I'll open it up for questions. Again, it will come through the Curriculum Advisory Committee as we need to get it ready to put in a registration manual by Christmas. No. There's 2 types of training. It's a very good question, by the way. There's a 2-week summer training. It's, I think it was $2,000 an instructor. You know what I had down here? Yes. Yep. No. The MIT training is if you want to be articulated with MIT. So there's a 2-week Fab Lab training where you go through the whole process, how to do the Fab Lab, and that brings you into the Fab Lab fold. If you want actually that articulation agreement with MIT, that took their instructor 1 Wednesday a week for a full 9 months to get the certification. So basically, you're taking MIT college classes. Possibility for the future, let's put it that way. I'd like to get the Fab Lab up and running, and get that process going, because we can still do that and articulate. If you want to join the international network, if you're over Montemita where they got the school from, I think the Netherlands was up, you have to be part of the MIT network. But that's a huge commitment for an instructor and the school district to provide that training. That's a very good question.
Other questions? Just one. Have you had any conversations with our community ed about some synergy there and with the community?
Briefly, I know we have a group going there in November. Community Ed, and I have a high school administrator and a couple teachers will be going with them, so we can develop that partnership. Because what that'll require is then the Community Ed to have a person trained to do the nighttime component of that, unless one of the high school people would. But but I know that November they're going with a group.
And going from the business angle, any contact with, I believe it's called SCORE, the small business people?
Not yet, no. We haven't even reached out yet to the businesses to get donated equipment, but I'll have to remember that when I'll talk to our business people about that. That's actually a good, I think it's something that's been missing in a lot of stuff we do. This is that business SCORE. I'll remember that.
I believe they're looking for something too.
Okay, excellent. And once we get through the curriculum process and get it approved by the curriculum committee in this group, then I'll feel comfortable going out and soliciting help. But until I've gone through the process, I don't want to go out and reach out to people. And then, does that make sense? Do it in the right. But SCORE, S-C-O-R-E. Okay.
I think it's a group of retired business executives who've got.
I like that.
My father did that.
I like that.
As far, I know you're at the beginning stages of the curriculum meetings, but are you anticipating more? I mean, how many classes? Are we doing one or two classes next year? Or one class year for this next year?
Yes, I would like to start out with one class and see where our enrollment goes. That's kind of the way it is. It depends on how many sections of the one class you have, and one class may take 2 hours because you have a design and you have an implementation. So we're looking with one class. Montemita, I think, calls us You Can Build Anything. Did I have that right? And it's essentially one class they have that they repeat many times. No, that's all of them. The class we have would be, now I can't think of it, Project Lead the Way. That's the 9th grade, and there are 2 different programs. We will keep Project Lead the Way in there with the STEM and everything, and this follows STEM. So we'll kind of have the 2 concurrent programs, but the Project Lead the Way is pretty much all CAD-based engineering, where this one is is much more of the design and construction, and with 3D printers and shop bots and engravers and CNC routers, which we already have. We're well set up with our CNC machinery, and we got the space. John Marish and Jennifer Reinhardt are very, very excited about this. And then there are more classes down the road. What we're not going to start the first year real quickly is there's an electronics engineering portion of this that they advise you hold off a couple years. That gets pretty in-depth, and you get a few that's actually constructing printing circuit boards. But they suggest you wait a couple years, get the program up running, and then you move that thing. So we've done that much research on it, and I'm looking at one class to answer your question. I don't know what we'll call it yet. Fab Lab 101.
And like anybody
Yet to be determined.
I think there'll be as much enthusiasm with the kids as there is here at the board table. So
I think so. It'll be a growing and learning process. There's only 1 or 2 models in the state, and you like to borrow from whatever you can and make it better.
Sure. Very good. Thank you very much. We'll move on to policy. We have policy 525.1. Okay.
Good evening again. In your board packets for first reading, policy 525.1. Student use of cellular phones, digital imaging devices, and other personal electronics devices. This policy has gone under revision to provide guidance for our students, and we're aligning it to our one-to-one and BYOD initiative, essentially using devices for educational purposes. This is for second reading, we will have the actual document here that shows what's been actually changed. Just in summary, looking at the violations, probably the biggest change there is once you got to the second and the third violation, devices were confiscated for up to 45 days. And essentially when we're looking at one-to-one as UYOD, confiscating devices for that amount of time is not going to really work very well. And so it's really bringing this policy into alignment that, using it for instructional purposes under the direction of the teacher, and if there are, transgressions or if there's inappropriate use of those devices, bringing those violations more in line with directing the student to turn the device off or taking it from them where they get at the end of the day. And if it continues to be a problem, working with the lead administration on future disciplinary actions resulting in what's appropriate. So again, this is the first read. For the second read, we'll have what the actual revisions were. But for the first part, they were very minor.
Sure, if any board member would like this ahead of time, they can contact. Do you want to just send those out? Send out the revision changes to us. Do that. Thank you. We'll move on to administrative reports. The superintendent's report.
Yes. Well, today was a big day in Prior Lake Savage area schools. We had our groundbreaking for our high school addition this morning, and we had 4 of our board members present. Chad was there, Rich, Lee, and Todd, as well as Senator Eric Pratt, a previous school board member, Tony Albright, representative, Mayor Janet Williams from the city of Savage, and the Savage city manager, Barry Stock, was there. We had a variety of representatives from Vossart and Wold and Nexus, as well as Jim Dello and his team and administration. So it was a good meeting, a good morning, but what really made it special is we had student representatives. So Adam was there to shovel some dirt, and who did you bring with you?
Our junior class president was actually sick today, so we had our vice president for the junior class come, and Mr. Lund and the vice president and I were in the commons, and I was like, let's just have the sophomore class president come in. She's right there. So we brought in the sophomore class president as well, which is Riley Halverson. Oh, and the junior vice president is Jenny Keller.
So having students be a part of that groundbreaking, actually students are even more than you're going to be able to benefit from it, was pretty darn special. You get to watch it being built this year, and then you graduate. Right. So, both of our younger students were able to be a part of that day, and also know that they'll be able to actually walk through those buildings, those hallways. So that was a very great way to start the day. In addition to that, we also learned this morning that our 2012-13 annual report to the community has received the Star Award from MNSPRA. This is the first time that we've received an award, and it always comes back to really good, solid publications. And Christy, you do a fabulous job of that, so congratulations to you. And to the team that has worked on this, that will be presented on November 15th during the MNSPRA Fall Conference. And then as we close out today, to have our QComp plan now completely ready to go, we'll fill out those forms for the state and begin in earnest. Actually, it's already begun in earnest to support our teachers in every best way that we can. Thank you to Deb Johnson, our PLSCA president, and Sean Baudette, vice president. They visited every single school multiple times this fall to answer questions and be of support to our teachers as they try to figure out what this all meant during this time of flux and change. So that was really important. I believe that with our continued focus on our strategic roadmap now, and the work that our coaches are going to be doing peer-to-peer, that we will be seeing really positive results for our teachers, but especially for our students. So I'm very excited about that happening today. And then coming up for us is on October 24th, 2 weeks from this Thursday, is our open house for parents of 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. who will be coming to learn about the options that we have available for them in 2014-15. And it seems strange to sit here in October talking about next year, but in fact, there are a lot of questions out in our community, and we want to be able to get ahead of those questions and help people understand what those options are for their children. So we're very excited. We're going to offer it at 2 sites only, at Jeffers Pond and at Red Tail Ridge, the west-east sides of the district, and hopefully be able to have parents come and join us in that conversation. We'll be asking for some informal feedback on what their thinking is today, so that we get a better sense of how many parents are choosing all-day kindergarten, how many parents are thinking of that. Maybe if an immersion was passed by the board, that they would think about a Spanish immersion or dual immersion for their child, and then those that are still thinking that maybe half-day is the best option for them. With those kind of pre-numbers, even though we don't get a commitment, will help us plan as we utilize our spaces as we move into next year. We know we do have space for all-day kindergarten, and that's a great advantage to our schools. Many districts are right now adding on space just for kindergarten, and we do not need to do that. We have enough space for our kindergarten students to go all day. So we will be moving forward with that and having this conversation with parents. Then in November, we'll bring the children back and have a child-centered morning, evening option for them. And then in January, we'll have our kindergarten registration where parents will commit. But throughout that process, we're going to be asking questions of those families so that we get a better understanding of what their needs are, and we can be flexible to the needs of our community. At the same time, Jeff is working on his immersion study, and I had the first planning meeting today, so I think I'll let him talk about that. But as I finish up my report, we have really good things going on in our district right now. We're really up to speed. We've got MEA coming this week, and finishing up on conferences and some professional development, and then ready to really kick back in next Monday, October 20th.
Thank you.
I'll let Jeff finish up on that.
Sure.
Dr. Gruber mentioned the immersion committee did meet for the first time today. We did a couple things. We first of all talked about all-day kindergarten and that shift and what those plans were looking like, and then we spent some time looking at research on immersion programs, and specifically in dual immersion, where kids are receiving instruction in the language in Spanish, in Spanish immersion, and then also part of the day in English, looking at that relative to kindergarten. So it was a good meeting. We met for 2 hours. We're set up next time to really move forward and talk about those dual immersion programs and options and what they could look like, so that we can bring something back to the board to look at relative to any recommendations moving forward. One of the things too is, as Dr. Gruber mentioned, with October 24th as a kindergarten communications talking about options. Again, the Spanish immersion being pending board approval, we are going to be talking about some of the work that the committee is doing and making it known that everything is all conceptual at this point of what the committee is looking at, and again to gauge the interest to see what parents are interested in as we move through this fall. But our next meeting, our second meeting, is next Monday night.
I just have one short comment to make about the federal shutdown and the changes that we have had several discussions with our finance, advisors about what do we need to do to make sure that we're prepared just in case. And I'm not sure that there's anyone that really thinks that we'll get to that point, but I want you to understand that I am doing everything that I can on my end. The best advice that we're receiving right now is to make sure we have as much liquid cash as we can have on hand. And so that's what we're doing, is we're kind of delaying any investments right now until we get past this hump. And so we are trying to be as prepared as we can.
Anything else from the board? Board reports. Any committee reports?
You know what I know on facilities.
Any others? Okay. We'll move on to future events. We have the No School the 16th through the 18th for MEA. The National Honor Society induction on October 21st at 7 o'clock. 24th district-wide kindergarten options meeting. 26th, the Halloween party at Twin Oaks for the community, and the 28th, we have a joint board meeting with the Bright Lake. It's at City Hall. It doesn't change at 4:30, and then the study session here at 6 o'clock. So the location did change on that due to the city's request. So we'll move on to a closed session for negotiations. Have a motion to close the meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thanks.
Called MEA, Sue Ann? Is it still called MEA?